They say you can hear a person's heartbreak if you listen close enough. Mine came wrapped in 3 knocks on my door. Just after midnight. I'm Noah Carter, 35. A quiet freelance architect living alone in Asheville, North Carolina. My life's symmetry. Clean lines. Predictable structure. I like things I can measure. Walls, beams, time. But what I didn't account for was the kind of collapse that doesn't come from poor design, but from people you trust. I had just moved into this small, modern home I designed myself, tucked into the Blue Ridge woods. It was supposed to be a fresh start after my marriage with Lauren ended 2 years ago. A quiet life, my dog Finn, and morning coffee, with mountain fog seeping through the trees. I wasn't expecting anyone that night. I was halfway through sketching an eco-home project for a client in Montana, when Finn growled low and stood up at the window. Then came the knock. 1, 2, 3. Hesitant, but not random. I stood up, heart ticking strangely fast, and opened the door. Standing there was my younger sister, Yava Carter, shivering, drenched, and clutching her 5-year-old son, Mason, whose Spider-Man pajama pants were soaked to the knees. Her left cheek was bruised, her lips slightly cracked. Hadn't seen her in over a year. "Ava," I whispered, disbelief washing over me. Her eyes wide, tired, and holding back a tsunami of pain, flicked toward Mason, then back at me. "Can we come in?" she asked. Her voice was raw, almost non-existent. I didn't ask questions. I stepped aside, pulled them both in, and shut the door against the wind and rain. Mason clung to her leg, teeth chattering. I grabbed a blanket from the couch, wrapped it around him, then tossed another to Ava. It took a moment before she finally sat down on the edge of the sofa, arms around Mason, eyes locked on nothing, just breathing like someone who'd been underwater for too long. I crouched down in front of her. "Ava, what happened?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me with a haunted sort of smile. "Do you remember when we were kids? Dad locked us out after we broke the window in the garage?" I blinked. "Yeah, we sat on the porch till Mom got home." She nodded that night. That was the first time I knew what it meant to feel forgotten. I didn't understand what she meant, not yet. But then, slowly, she started talking, whispered broken pieces. Her husband, Cole Becker, the same man our family once toasted with champagne and welcomed with open arms, had become a stranger with a charming mask and a cruel tongue. The bruises weren't new. They were worse this time. "I finally left," she said. "I took Mason. We drove. I didn't know where else to go." She looked at me like someone begging not to be sent back out into the storm. It's like I was the last house on the street with a light on. "Did you call Mom and Dad?" I asked quietly. She flinched. "I did. I stood outside their front door for 10 minutes before calling." Mom picked up. She told me not to bring drama to their neighborhood. It had ruined Dad's image at church. I stared at her. "You're serious?" She laughed bitterly. She said, "If this gets out, how will it look? You made your bed, Ava. Don't bring your mess to ours." I didn't say anything. Stu stood up and grabbed a towel for Mason's feet. The rest of the night passed in silence, the kind that only families know how to share. I made grilled cheese. Ava didn't eat. Mason did. She finally fell asleep on the couch holding him, while I stayed up in the kitchen, just staring at the walls, thinking. Our parents had always been that way. Pristine on the outside, surgical on the inside. We were raised on appearances and rules. Everything was about reputation, Sunday suits, and keeping secrets behind closed doors. But seeing Ava like that, beaten, disowned, alone, I knew this wasn't going to be a one-night thing. Took a breath and said it out loud, to no one. She's not going back. The next morning, while the fog still curled around the porch like ghosts, I sat on the front steps with a cup of black coffee and Finn curled at my feet. Ava joined me in silence, her face pale and distant. "You can stay here," I said simply. "However long you need." Her voice cracked. "No, I don't want to mess up your life. Your work, you finally got peace." I looked her straight in the eye. This house was too quiet anyway. She smiled for the first time. A real one. Soft, sad, but real. But deep down I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, because some storms don't pass. They follow you. And that knock on my door? It wasn't just my sister coming home. It was everything we tried to bury in our family finally clawing its way back to the surface. The first week felt like walking through fog. Quiet, cold, and thick, with everything unsaid. Ava barely spoke. Mason had night terrors. And I began checking the locks on the doors twice before bed, like something invisible had crept in with them that night. I didn't ask questions. I cooked. I cleaned. I watched cartoons with Mason and made hot cocoa like it was normal. I knew trauma doesn't unravel with a single act of kindness. It takes time and silence. Sometimes the quiet does more healing than 1,000 words. But it was Finn, my old Labrador, who did the real magic. Every morning, that dog trotted into the living room and dropped a squeaky tennis ball at Mason's feet. Every morning, Mason giggled like the world wasn't heavy. Ava noticed. Her eyes followed Mason with the kind of distant hope you see in mothers who've been through war. And she had, just not the kind with guns. She never mentioned Cole again, and I didn't bring him up till the day I saw him. It was a Thursday afternoon, around 2 p.m. I had taken Mason with me to the small hardware store on Maplewood to pick up a few things for a porch railing fix. He liked riding in the cart, and I liked watching him be a kid. We were rolling through the parking lot, Mason giggling as I raced the cart a little too fast when I stopped dead. Across the street, parked in a dark green Jeep Cherokee, was him, Cole Becker. He was sitting in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, arms crossed, looking straight at us. My blood turned to ice. He didn't move, didn't wave, just watched. I felt like I'd just been caught in a sniper scope. I dropped my voice and said, "Mason, bud, hang tight," and turned the cart toward the truck. I loaded him in, clipped his seatbelt, then looked back. The Jeep was gone. That night I didn't tell Ava. I didn't want to scare her. But the pit in my stomach was gnawing. Had he followed them here? Tracked her? Did he know where we lived? I installed new deadbolts on every door that night. The next morning, Ava was in the kitchen feeding Mason oatmeal, while he made his usual mess with blueberries. "You didn't sleep," she said quietly, not looking at me. I paused. "Neither did you." She finally glanced up. "What aren't you telling me?" I sat across from her and took a breath. "I saw him yesterday. Cole." Across the street from the hardware store. Her spoon clinked against the bowl. She didn't move. "Did he see Mason?" "Yes." She nodded, staring at the wall. "Then he'll come." "Ava." "No," she interrupted, voice brittle. "That's how he is. Once he loses control, he panics. He starts showing up, sending gifts, apologies, crying voicemails." Then she looked at me. Then comes the rage. It clenched my fists. "He lays a finger on either of you." "He won't," she whispered, eyes narrowing. "'Cause this time, I'm not scared. Not anymore." I didn't know what to say to that, but I believed her. And still, I wasn't prepared for what came next. 2 days later, Ava got a letter in the mailbox. No return address, just her name, Ava Carter, in thick black ink. Inside, a single photo. It was Ava and Mason. Taken just 2 days ago? At a coffee shop we'd stopped by on the way back from the park. She was smiling faintly. Mason had chocolate on his chin. It had been taken from across the street. Zoomed in, crisp, personal. On the back, in red marker, "You look better without me." Ava's hand shook as she handed it to me. My stomach turned. I'd seen this kind of thing before in crime documentaries. But this wasn't TV. This was my sister. "I'm calling the police," I said, already dialing. Ava reached over and pressed my phone down. "It won't help. There's no restraining order, no proof. Just this. They'll say it's nothing." She was right, and that made it worse. That night, I installed cameras. One on the porch, one facing the driveway, and one in the hallway inside. I also started sleeping on the couch again. Not because I had to, but because I needed to be the wall between them and whatever threat waited in the dark. Then came the email. Ava's old account, the one she hadn't logged into in months. She used it to check an old subscription, and there it was. A message from an untraceable address. Subject line, "My turn." The body of the message was short. "I took your voice. I'm taking his." Attached was a photo of Mason's elementary school with a red X drawn over it. Ava screamed. I've never felt rage like I did in that moment. It was cold, surgical, controlled. I called my friend Luke, a deputy sheriff who owed me a favor after I designed his cousin's cabin for free last summer. "Send me everything," he said. "We're going to build your sister a legal fortress." By that evening, we had filed for an emergency restraining order. Ava documented every bruise, every message, every incident. I handed over the photo, the email, and the recording from the hardware store where the Jeep was partially caught on tape. But even with all that, I knew legal systems moved slow. People like Cole, they didn't wait. So I prepared. I pulled my old rifle from the attic, cleaned it, loaded it. Ava didn't ask questions. She just watched, then locked the windows behind me. The next few days passed in a strange, tense calm, the kind you feel just before a hurricane hits land. But that Sunday morning, as we sat on the porch, sipping lukewarm coffee and watching Mason chase Finn in the yard, Ava looked at me and said something that caught me completely off guard. "Noah, what if I told you that Cole wasn't always the monster?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean before the gaslighting and black eyes?" She shook her head. "I mean, what if it started with someone else?" I stared at her. "What are you saying?" She took a deep breath. "There's something I never told you. Something about our family. About why I stayed with him as long as I did. About what I did to deserve it." I sat up straight. "You didn't deserve any of it, Ava." Her eyes glistened. "I thought that too. Until I remembered what happened back in Ohio, in that house, when I was 15. My heart dropped." She looked at me. "It's not just Cole I'm running from." And in that moment, everything shifted. This wasn't just about a violent husband anymore. There were older ghosts, and one of them might be buried in our past. "I haven't spoken these words out loud in over 20 years, Ava said, her voice hollow as she watched Mason chase fireflies through the yard. "But if I don't tell you now, I'll carry it until it kills me." I didn't know what to expect. Eva was the younger sibling. Loud, wild, always chasing something. But in that moment, sitting barefoot on my porch under a pale North Carolina sky, she looked older than me. "Do you remember when Dad took that job in Columbus, back in '06? She asked. "Yeah," I nodded slowly. "We lived in that rental with the ivy on the windows. Pine Hollow Road. You were, what, 14, 15? 15, she confirmed. "That house?" "Noah, something happened there." She gripped her knees and looked away. Something I told myself I imagined. But I didn't. I know I didn't. I leaned forward, heart thudding in my ears. "Ava, what happened?" She didn't blink. "Uncle Jeff." I froze. Uncle Jeff wasn't a blood relative. He was Dad's childhood friend, a heavy-set guy with cologne that choked the room in stories about car dealerships and strip clubs. He used to visit on weekends, always bringing gifts, always staying too late. My mouth went dry. What did he do? Ava stared ahead, voice shaking. "He came into my room one night, said he had something to show me, said not to tell Mom. I was too scared to scream, too confused to run. It happened twice before I finally locked the door with the desk chair. And when I tried to tell Mom, she said I was exaggerating, that Jeff was family, that I probably misunderstood." A chill ran down my spine. I begged her to tell Dad. Ava whispered. She slapped me. Told me if I ever said it again, she'd send me to a girls' home in Kentucky. I sat in stunned silence. My vision blurred. "Shh." "She made me apologize to Jeff," Ava continued. "Said I had tempted him by wearing tank tops. I was 15, Noah. 15. Tears slipped down her face, but her voice never cracked. It was iron. I think that's when it all changed for me. I started believing I was the problem, that I caused things, that when people hurt me it was somehow my fault. That's why I stayed with Cole. That's why I let it happen again and again." I reached over, grabbed her hand. "You didn't deserve any of that. Not then, not now." She finally looked at me. "I told Cole once. Early in our marriage, I was crying in the bathroom and he found me there. I told him about Jeff. You know what he said?" I shook my head. Said, "Well, now I get why you're so messed up." And then he never brought it up again. Rage pulsed through me like lightning. I wanted to find Cole. I wanted to find Jeff. I wanted to break things. But Ava kept going. After that, I stopped telling people anything real. I became a master of performance. Smiles at family reunions. PTA meetings, Instagram photos, everything perfect. I bled on the inside. We sat in silence, the weight of 2 decades collapsing around us. I had no idea. And yet, part of me wondered if deep down, I always sensed something was broken. Not in Ava, but around her, in our house, in our parents, and the way truth was never welcome. "You think Dad knew?" I asked. She nodded once. "I think he knew everything and said nothing." Because appearances mattered more than daughters. The next morning, I drove alone to a tiny cemetery just outside Asheville, not to visit a grave, but to talk to someone. Our grandmother, Louise Carter, was buried there. She was the only person in our family who ever made us feel safe. The only adult who called out wrongs when she saw them. I sat on her old stone bench, staring at the grave and whispered, "Grams, if you're listening, help me protect her now." Later that afternoon, Ava came into my workspace with something in her hand. It was a cassette tape. "What's this?" I asked. "Something I found in a box from Mom's attic years ago. I kept it, and never told anyone." We found my old boombox in the garage, popped it in, and hit play. A grainy recording crackled to life. A child's voice, Ava scared, whispering, "Please, don't come in my room again. Please stop." Then a male voice. Jeff's voice. "You'll ruin everything if you talk, kid. Shh. You don't want to make your parents hate you." My hands trembled. Ava hit stop. I was recording myself reading poetry. I must have left the tape running. That was the night I locked the door. We stared at her. "We can take this to the police," I said. "Should." She shook her head. "There's no statute left, no direct evidence. But I don't need a trial, Noah. I just need to stop hiding." That night she wrote a letter. She didn't send it. She posted it. A full confession. On Facebook. On Instagram. What a new blog she started called The Girl Behind the Closed Door. She named names. Shared the tape. Described every detail. And it spread. Like fire. By morning, her story had reached over 10,000 people. Survivors flooded her inbox. Local news requested interviews. A state rep reached out to discuss a bill for mandatory background checks for visiting uncles. And our parents, they called? But not to apologize. Dad left a voicemail. "How dare you ruin our name again? First Cole. Now this. You're an embarrassment." Ava deleted the message. But later that day, someone showed up at the house. Not Cole. Not Jeff. Someone else. A woman in her 60s, silver hair and tired eyes. She stood on the porch and said, "Is Ava home?" I answered cautiously. "Who's asking?" She paused, voice cracking. "I'm Marianne Becker, Cole's mother." My stomach dropped. "I saw the tape," she said. "I saw your sister's post. I need to tell her something." Ava appeared behind me, silent, staring. Marianne turned to her. "Ava, I believe you. I believe everything, and I'm so sorry for what my son did." Ava's face twisted with shock. "I tried to raise him better," Marianne whispered, tears falling now. "But I failed. I let his father beat him. I turned the TV louder so I wouldn't hear it. And now my son became the same monster, maybe worse." Ava said nothing. Marianne reached into her purse and pulled out a brown envelope. This is something Cole doesn't know I have. But I think you deserve it." Inside the envelope were printed screenshots. Hundreds of messages between Cole and someone named Grady Wild 89. Graphic messages, plans, comments about following Ava, photos of Mason, surveillance. Marianne swallowed. "He's been talking to someone, I think. I think he's planning something." Ava's knees buckled. I caught her, because inside the last screenshot was a map of our house, the circle drawn around Mason's room, and underneath it, typed in bold, "It's August 14th. She'll never see it coming." We looked at the calendar. It was August 11th. And suddenly, we realized we had only 72 hours before something terrible was about to happen. I've built structures that hold 80 tons of steel. I've designed homes to stand against earthquakes. But nothing, not one damn blueprint, could have prepared me for the next 3 days. August 14th, 3 days away. Somewhere, someone with the username GradyWild89 was planning something. Something aimed at Ava, at Mason, at our home. And Cole. He wasn't working alone. After Mary Ann left that brown envelope in our hands, she disappeared down the driveway in tears. I don't think she could bear to stay and watch the storm she had warned us about. Ava sat in the kitchen, arms around Mason, while I paced the hallway holding those screenshots like a detonator. Who the hell was Grady Wilde? I dove into research. Reverse image lookups. Reddit threads. Twitter posts. I posted anonymously on dark web watch groups, asking if anyone recognized the username. It was slow, painful work. But then I remembered Luke. I called him. You said you owed me one. I said, I need a background check. Username Grady Wilde 89. There was a pause. No. This isn't just stretching the law. This is snapping it. I know, I said. But a 5-year-old's life is at stake. Mine too. Another pause. Give me a few hours. Ava didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. We took turns watching Mason's door. The cameras were running. The rifle stayed propped by the front door. And Finn, my faithful old lab, never left Ava's side. By morning, Luke called. His voice was cold. Noah, we've got a problem. What kind? Grady Wilde 89 is real. His name's Grady Wilder. 36, lives in Brevard, just 40 minutes from you. Arrested at age 19 for stalking. 2 counts. Psychiatric hold at 22. No current job. No driver's license. But what? He's connected to Jeff. I froze. Your old family friend? Yeah. Back in 2010, Grady was part of a recovery group Jeff hosted for troubled teens, only it wasn't sanctioned by the state. We think it was more like a cult. And Jeff, well, he wasn't just grooming Ava. I couldn't breathe. But you're telling me this guy, Grady, was practically raised by Jeff after his parents' ODD, Luke finished. He worshipped him. Still does. Apparently he blames Ava for Jeff's life falling apart. Wants revenge. My hands went ice cold. How do you know all this? I accessed his encrypted forum posts. The guy runs a hidden blog called The Flame Snuffed. It's about retribution for fallen mentors. He's obsessed with stories of men whose reputations were destroyed by women who lied. My throat tightened, and then Luke said something that made the room spin. He posted a countdown clock. Public. 3 days left. Title: The Unraveling. I hung up and stared at the living room. The toys, the folded blanket, Mason's tiny socks. This wasn't just Cole. This was a vendetta, a twisted mission. Ava walked in behind me. She looked at me, and without me saying a word, she knew. He's coming, isn't he? She asked. I nodded. And then Ava did something I didn't expect. She stood tall, shoulders back, eyes steel. Then let him know, I said. We're not waiting for him to show up. What do you mean? I mean we go to him. Ava hesitated. Do you want to confront him? I nodded. If we wait, we lose control. I want to look this man in the eyes and let him know we're not prey. And so we drove. Luke texted me the address. Small cabin deep in the Pisgah forest, right outside Brevard. No neighbors, no cell signal. Mason stayed with Luke's sister, a kind, gentle woman named Deb, who knew how to keep a child laughing while adults faced monsters. As Ava and I drove, the trees grew thicker, the road narrowed, the silence inside the truck was heavy. Finally, the GPS glitched, and Luke's voice crackled over the radio. Half a mile ahead, left fork. The cabin appeared like a scar in the woods, crooked chimney, moss-covered roof, and wind chimes made of spoons and rusted nails. I parked, heart pounding. Ready? I asked. Ava exhaled. Let's end this. We approached slowly. I had the rifle slung across my back but hidden under a coat. Ava walked with her hands visible. When we knocked, the door creaked open almost immediately. And there he was, Grady Wilder. Gaunt, hollow-cheeked, eyes too wide, like someone who hadn't slept in a decade. He smiled. Was wondering when you'd come, he said. His voice was gentle. Too gentle. Where's Cole? Ava asked flatly. Grady blinked. Oh, I think he's busy right now. Grieving. You stole everything from him, you know. You sent him down that road, I growled. You and Jeff. Grady tilted his head. Jeff was a prophet. Your sister destroyed him. I stepped forward. You're going to stop. Right now. You're going to delete every post, every photo. And if I ever see your face near my family again, or what? Grady whispered. We'll do what he didn't. I blinked. What, Jeff? Grady murmured. He never hurt you, Noah. You were his favorite. The golden boy. I froze. Ava looked at me, confused. What is he talking about? She asked. Grady's smile turned sickly. You never wondered why Jeff only stayed over on the weekends you were home? Why he gave you special projects? Why he touched your shoulder like that? I couldn't breathe, Noah, Ava whispered. Grady's voice slithered. You were the only one he called by a nickname. Scout, you were his favorite, and you never told. I felt the world tilt. My knees buckled. He was right. Buried somewhere in the rubble of memory were flashes. The way Jeff used to brush my hair, the secret trips to the hardware store, the time he told me to keep a drawing he'd made of me, shirtless with angel wings. I thought I'd imagined it, rewritten it, but I hadn't. Jeff didn't just abuse Ava. He used me too. Ava reached out and grabbed my arm. No, it's not your fault. Grady stepped back. You want me to stop? Fine, but know this. I'm not alone. There are others. They're watching her story. Every day. Waiting, and then a sound. A phone buzzed on the table. A notification. I lunged forward, grabbed it. Text message. Tonight, 3:17 a.m. Northridge. I didn't know who it was from, but I knew that place. Northridge was the overlook 12 miles from our house, secluded. It's quiet, where Ava used to take Mason to see the stars. They were going to take him. We raced back to the truck. I didn't look back. Ava's face was pale but determined. Noah, she said, we're going to stop this, once and for all. And I believed her. But deep down, I was crumbling. Because I had spent my whole life designing safe homes, and never knew the walls of our childhood were already caving in. And now someone wanted to finish what Jeff started. In 12 hours, it would be August 14th, and someone was planning to steal a child under the stars. August 14th, 3:12 a.m. The road to Northridge was gravel, silent except for the steady hum of our engine and the low growl of thunder rumbling somewhere far in the Carolina sky. No music. No talking, just Ava gripping my hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to the earth. Mason was safe, still asleep at Deb's house, with 2 patrol cars parked discreetly outside. But what waited for us at the overlook wasn't just a threat. It was a reckoning. As the headlights curved around the final bend, the view opened. The dark silhouette of the forest, the wide drop into the valley below, and the ridge itself. A flat patch of dirt and rock where people came to watch meteor showers. Only tonight, the only thing falling was silence. Then we saw it. A figure, standing near the edge, alone. A man in a gray hoodie, holding something. No, someone. A child. A decoy. We skidded to a stop. I grabbed my rifle and leaped out. Ava followed, heart racing. The man didn't move. Put him down, I shouted. Now. He slowly turned, and my stomach twisted. It was Cole, but not the Cole we remembered. His face was gaunt, eyes wild. He looked half-starved, half-possessed. His hands trembled around the doll in his arms. A life-size mannequin dressed like Mason, with brown hair and a Spider-Man hoodie. Ava gasped. It's not him, she whispered. Cole smiled. He was never mine, he said softly. Not really. He always looked like you, Ava. Always smiled like you. He was your second chance. Your escape. He dropped the doll. I didn't get an escape. Ava stepped forward. Could have, Cole. You could have chosen better. You could have healed. I begged you. He shook his head, eyes brimming. You exposed me. Humiliated me. Made me a ghost in my own damn life. He pointed toward the woods behind him. You think I came alone? I raised my rifle, aiming toward the trees. Movement, 2 shadows emerging. And then, Finn, my dog, burst from the truck, barking like hell, launching toward the nearest figure. Chaos erupted. I lunged, tackled Cole to the ground as the 2 men charged. Ava screamed, backing up, but grabbed the flare gun from my glove box. I'd shown her how to use it days ago. One of the shadows Grady wrestled with Finn, screaming as the dog tore into his arm. The other, younger, sprinted for Ava. She raised the flare gun. Don't, she shouted. He kept running. She fired. The flare shot upward, burning crimson, bursting into flame above the trees. A signal. Then a second shot from behind. Not hers. A gunshot. I looked up. Cole was holding a pistol, dazed, lips bleeding. Ava was on the ground, clutching her leg. "Ugh," I roared. I tackled Cole again, slammed his head against the dirt, disarmed him, and tossed the weapon into the woods. From the forest, sirens erupted. Red and blue lights flashed. Luke's voice boomed over a speaker. "Drop your weapons. Hands in the air." Grady stumbled back, blood pouring from his arm. The other man, now frozen in fear, dropped to his knees. Cole didn't move. He was unconscious. I ran to Ava. Her leg was bleeding. Bad, but she was alive. She looked up at me, breathing heavy, tears falling. "You said we'd stop this." "We did," I whispered. 2 officers reached us. EMTs weren't far behind. They loaded Ava into the ambulance. I climbed in beside her. As we drove, I held her hand tight, watching the stars blur past the windows. She looked at me, smiling through pain. "You remember the first time we came here? I was 8. You were 10. "Yeah," I whispered. "You made me promise I'd always protect you." She squeezed my hand. "You kept it." The hospital stitched Ava up. The bullet had grazed her thigh. No major damage, physically, emotionally. That would take time. Grady was arrested. So was the second man, a 21-year-old drifter recruited through one of Grady's online forums. A follower. Cole was taken into custody but placed on suicide watch. His mind was fraying. His lawyer argued he'd suffered a mental breakdown. Marianne visited Ava in the hospital, sobbing at her bedside. "I don't know how to make this right," she said. "You just did," Ava whispered, "by believing me." The next few weeks were quiet. Peaceful, even. Mason returned home. We told him Mommy got a bad boo-boo while chasing away some bad dreams, and that Uncle Noah helped fight the monsters. He believed us. Kids always do. But the truth? We had all been running from ghosts, and that night on North Ridge, we finally turned and faced them. Together. 6 months later, winter came to Asheville in silence. Snow blanketed the trees, soft and clean, like the world trying to offer a do-over. And in many ways, that's what we were living now. A second life. A slower, simpler one. Ava moved into the little guest house behind my property. We built it together, just the 2 of us, hammer by hammer, beam by beam. Her hands shaky at first, mine steadier now than they'd ever been. Mason decorated his room with glow-in-the-dark stars and insisted on a rocket ship nightlight. He still had nightmares sometimes, but fewer now. Finn slept at the foot of his bed most nights, ever loyal, ever patient. Ava was writing again, not just blogs or journal entries, but a book, a memoir. This time, not just about surviving trauma, but reclaiming identity. She titled it, "The Girl Who Opened the Door and Me." I stopped designing houses for a while. Instead, I taught night classes at the community college. Architecture for healing spaces. How to build rooms that make people feel safe, not just look safe. One of my students asked me once, "What makes a structure last the longest?" Without thinking, I said, "Truth." That night, I sat outside with Ava under the porch light, sipping hot cider as snow fell quietly around us. She looked at me. "Do you ever think about it? What would have happened if I never showed up that night?" I nodded slowly. I'd still be drawing perfect blueprints in an empty house. She smiled. I'd still be drawing hearts on bruises and pretending they didn't hurt. We were quiet for a while. Then she said, "You ever wonder why Mom and Dad never came back?" I did, but I didn't like the answer. After the Northridge incident, the media storm was brutal. Cole's arrest, Grady's online cult, Ava's blog going viral. Our audio recordings were played on national television. Our parents, they went silent. No apology, no phone call, just silence. Until a letter arrived. It came on Christmas Eve. Unmarked envelope. Same handwriting as always. Inside was a card that read, "We saw your interview. We read your lies. You've made your choice. This is goodbye." Ava burned it in the fireplace. She didn't cry. "I already said goodbye the night they closed the door on me," she whispered. In early January, we received unexpected news. Jeff, the monster who started it all, had died in prison. Liver failure. No one claimed the body. Ava stared at the email for a long time, then deleted it. No reaction, no words, just peace.
Oh.
The same week, Ava's manuscript was accepted by a major publisher. Her story, raw, honest, fearless, was going national. And then came the twist. 2 days before her first live interview in New York, I received a call from a number I hadn't seen in years. Megan, my ex-wife. I hesitated, but picked up. "Noah," she said softly. "I saw the news. About Ava. The book. Everything. I wanted to say I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked, wary. "For leaving you in the middle of your storm." She sounded older, tired. "I didn't understand what you were carrying. What she was carrying. I should have stayed." I didn't say anything. "I'm in Asheville next week," she added. "Maybe we could meet. Just talk?" I told her I'd think about it. I never called back. Not out of anger, but because I finally understood something. Some people are meant to walk with you through the fire. Others were only ever matches. 2 weeks later, Ava and I sat backstage at a television studio in New York. She was getting mic'd up. Nervous, Mason was coloring in a rocket ship nearby. I leaned over and said, "You know they're going to ask about forgiveness, right?" She nodded. "I don't know if I have it in me," she whispered. "You don't have to forgive them," I said. "But you do have to forgive yourself." She looked at me, eyes soft. "For what?" "For surviving. For healing. For choosing light." That night, she sat on stage under bright lights and told the world her story. And when the interviewer asked, "If your parents are watching tonight, what would you say to them?" Ava paused, then leaned in. "I would say, I'm still your daughter. I always was. You just forgot how to love me." The crowd was silent and erupted in applause. And me. I stood in the shadows, Mason in my arms, watching my little sister shine like a lighthouse. Later that night after the show, we walked through Central Park as snow fell around us. Ava turned to me and asked, "Noah, do you think broken people can ever be whole again?" I smiled and pointed up. The moon was full, the stars sharp. "You're not broken," I said. "You're mosaic, cracks filled with gold." She laughed a real laugh. And for the first time in years, we both felt free. So now, I'll ask you this. Have you ever been forced to choose between truth and family? And if the people who raised you turned away when you needed them most, would you still call them home? Let us know in the comments. Because sometimes healing begins when someone dares to speak and someone else dares to listen.